Welcome in on episode 105 in the KIPS Podcast. My name is Tyler Valencia. I'm the president of KIPS and Time to Train Fitness. I have a rather controversial topic that I'm going to go over in this episode. And I got to start by saying this is not an episode that's going to say, here is what needs to be done. Here is what's wrong. XYZ needs to happen in order for things to be fair. This is mostly just to create some ideas, create some conversation for whether you are a personal trainer, group exercise instructor, fitness manager, potential director of education, as those are individuals that I will bring up based off of conversations that I've had over the last few years with those types of individuals. Now, before we jump into the episode, please make sure to do all the podcast things. Make sure you subscribe on your favorite platform. If at any point you miss this episode, let's say you have to go train a client, you have to go teach a class, and you want to pick it up, maybe think about going over to our YouTube channel. You can find all the podcast episodes. Make sure you subscribe while you're there. And check out all the tutorials and product reviews we have there. Let's jump into a little bit of background here. The last time I was asked this question was from a fitness manager, a friend of mine that lives in the Pacific Northwest. He messaged me and he said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" He has been a fitness manager in that capacity for quite a bit. He started out as a personal trainer and he asked me what I thought. And at that point, I said, I can see both sides of it. And spoiler alert, I am still on that on that thought path that I could see both sides of this in terms of both sides have a viewpoint. And I think finding common ground is the hopeful outcome of all of it. And I shared my viewpoint that I'm going to go over in this episode in terms of both viewpoints, the business viewpoint and the instructor viewpoint as well. Some background into the industry with this. If we think back to 2021, starting to get out of the pandemic, I know that fitness managers, directors of personal training that I know had shared with me that they were having issues with getting instructors to return, because instructors were finding more profitable ways to grow their career outside of a gym, whether it was online or 1v1. They were finding these career paths, and I still see these types of posts. How are people hiring? Where are people finding good instructors to hire? I still see those types of posts on social media. And so I bring this up because I think that that is one of the propositions to throw out from that business standpoint. If things were not as attractive before, and all of a sudden instructors are able to make more money outside, yes, there's still that the safety, the security of working for a facility. But if you are being paid less and expected more, it doesn't really work out. Now, from my own experience with being a business owner, I have paid instructors for admin time, and that is something that I've worked out with them on a case-by-case scenario. And the viewpoint of this, though, is in terms of how can we move forward with it, and also to bring more perspective into everything. As a fitness pro, a fitness instructor, we're not just clocking in and out. I think that should be pretty well known. We're not just clocking in and out, and teaching a session is not just an hour. Those are pretty standard viewpoints, whether you're doing a 30, 45, or an hour session, class, whatever that might be. There are so many pieces outside of you. You have to create the program. You have to set up a class. You have to get equipment ready, whatever that is. You have to drive there. All those pieces go into it. And so I think that makes it very difficult. It makes it very difficult to find a compromise because of the fact that you also get paid more than a typical position. So those are all background things that I wanted to get out in the initial part of this podcast episode. Like I said before, I am not trying to say this is the way, this is how it needs to be done, and trying to fight for one viewpoint or the other. I want to bring my perspective on both of them because I think I have some experience in both, having been a fitness instructor, taught group exercise, been a personal trainer, all for gyms, done it on my own. And it's I think there's a part of it that's also what you prefer in terms of what career path. And I think that is a different episode altogether. And I know I've created episodes like that. If you're in the market for adjustable dumbbells or at-home workout equipment, check out Core Home Fitness at the link in the description. From adjustable dumbbells, multi-function benches, and all-in-one options, they got it all. I personally have their adjustable dumbbells and the glute drive that also works as a bench and would recommend them to anyone building their home gym or looking for easy adjustable options. The dumbbells, they easily adjust from 5 pounds to 50 pounds just by turning the handle and lock in for your safety. Grab yourself a pair and see for yourself how easy they can fit into your fitness program. If you've been a fan of this podcast, you know that before end of each episode, you're going to hear a promotion for the Naboso Duo insoles. I've been using them for probably a year and a half, and I personally think they're game changers. I think everybody should get them, try them out, see what you think. And personally, I've talked about how I used to have foot pain just from sitting at a desk and then trying to be active, trying to go work out and not really being able to fully maximize it. So I always try to throw it out there for individuals to just try them out, see what you think, utilize them in your day-to-day, and hopefully improve your overall activity level. That's the key right there, activity level. So check them out. There's a link in the description for the Naboso insoles. They have a variety of them to check out, different accessories. Check them all out. See what you think, and hopefully come back and let us know that they've really helped out with your activity level. Let's get back to the episode. Let's go over some questions to set the stage a little bit more here. So if a fitness instructor were to get paid for admin time, how can it be tracked? I think that is one of the things I know back in, I think it was 2009, 2010, the gym chain that I worked for had started to create something of this nature. But some of the stipulations were that you had to be at the gym, you had to clock in a certain way. And those are pieces that can be taken advantage of. If I'm looking at it from the business standpoint, fitness pros can take advantage of that if you are not tracking it, if you're not having to clock in to create your programming. But I think that is a very real question. How can it be tracked? If your facility uses ADP or some type of tracking system, how is it being tracked? Or is it on the honor system? You got to think about that from both sides of it. If you're a fit pro and you're thinking, well, they should just trust me. They should just believe that I'm going to be doing X amount of hours on top of that and just assume that it's all good. But if you're a business owner and you're seeing the same things being repeated, and you're wondering, but I'm paying this instructor for admin time, whether it's creating programs, setting up for XYZ, and all of a sudden you're not seeing those things getting performed, you start to lose trust in those. So both sides of the coin there. Next question here that I have listed, are all instructors compensated the same amount for admin time? Real question here. Experience, programming, education, those are all things that can play a role in it. As a fit pro, as a fitness instructor, let's use the personal trainer example here. If you are a veteran in the industry, you've been in it for at least 4 or 5 years, you have your degree, maybe you have advanced degrees, advanced certifications, and you have an admin rate, and all of a sudden someone comes in that just finished their entry-level certification and they're getting the paid same amount to create programs, you might be looking at it like, whoa, how is that fair? How is that part of the business that we work for? At the flip side of it, how do you create that as a business owner? How do you decide what's a good rate, what's fair, all those types of things? Those are all things that are just rolling through my mind right now as I'm speaking out loud about this one. But I think that is another real question to consider, whether you are a fit pro or a business right there. Is it a set rate on top of each session you develop now? So if going back to the first one, talking about the tracking, and if you have a set rate, is the amount that you're paid, is it basically if you have one session, are you then paid your admin rate on top of that, or are you logging those hours separately? I think that those are pieces to consider. And what an idea that's just coming to my mind right now is one of the pieces of being a fit pro fitness instructor that we talk about a lot is, okay, it's not a 9 to 5, but can we create those types of schedules that can potentially become 9 to 5? This is thinking out loud here, and this is not something that I have written down. I just have a bunch of questions written down, a bunch of notes that I wrote down, but I'm thinking out loud here. Let's say that you are trying to create some type of 8-hour schedule, and you're trying to create a schedule that helps you essentially create a career out of it. And maybe you are training in the early morning and then you're training later on. Maybe you stack on those admin hours right after your session. So instead of training a few clients, let's say you do the early morning crowd and you're going to train 3-4 people, maybe you stack on 3 hours of admin rate that you have to clock in for a separate rate. And all of a sudden you have a 7-hour day right there in the early morning that includes your training rate and also your admin rate. And it's tracked, and all of a sudden you have those programs knocked out. And I don't know how long it takes. I don't know if it could, in terms of the time rate right there. And there's probably other things that need to be included in and talked about, discussed, because could you spend 3 hours creating programs? I don't think so. That's not probably the most realistic thing there, but there's probably other admin items that could help out with creating those hours right there. So thinking out loud there. The last question that I have written here is to look at and play the whole devil's advocate, and are instructors compensated, or since instructors are compensated more per hour for the most jobs, does that not apply to the development of it? So this is more the business aspect of it. And I will pull up some numbers in the back of my head here. When I used to work for a facility, and it was a higher end facility, my training rate was in the 42 to 47 range. And I know that is a very good rate. So a very good rate there. And this was, again, it was a higher end facility. And with that though, I understood that does include the programming you're doing. And the way that I used to have my workflow, I used to create my programs at the beginning of the week for my clients I had coming up for that week. And, I might even have the Excel sheets that I used to use. I would use Excel sheets, print them out, put them in the slots for the week, and have those all set. But if we're talking about the per hour rate, then this is the business end of it. If you are paying somebody for that rate, and they are supposed to do all that work outside of, then it goes back to what we talked about before, that it's not just an hour worth of work. And so maybe that language needs to be discussed. The whole, okay, this rate that you're being paid for, it's for your training session and it's for the development of that session, those two pieces there. And maybe the language also stipulates this is for your 45 to hour rate of it. I think those types of discussions can probably help out with understanding how much you're getting paid for each session, and also the language that's a part of it helps out with the communication between the business and the instructor. And maybe that does mean that the compensation for it does have to change. Maybe it is more, maybe it is less, where you are. Those are also things you have to remember. Depending upon where you are in the country will also dictate your per hour rate. Like I mentioned before with how much I was getting paid for the facility that I was at that time. This was years ago. It was a higher end area. And those are things that you need to look at as a fitness instructor. Let me bring a viewpoint from the instructor that I think needs to be thought of, but also really executed. So if this whole conversation, this podcast episode, if any piece of it is going to move forward in an actionable way, because in my opinion, you can't just demand it. You can't just say, oh, I deserve this. I need this. Right. What value are you bringing to that gym? That is the biggest piece in my mind for making any type of action, any type of movement in this area. What type of value do you bring? Clocking in, doing your thing, and then going home is not value. Yes, you might think it in your opinion. Times have changed. It is 2024. I think, and I've worked with many fitness instructors that have had that mindset. I need to be paid for my time. And they think that despite having small following, small client list, that they are walking on clouds, that nothing phases them. And that is their viewpoint. Okay, that's fine. Don't be upset then when things change in our industry, because the value of what you bring is part of also where the power lies with this. Before I jump into my big points here, because this is one that I don't want to forget here, the value of it that a gym brings or a facility brings is the security of it. Clients coming in, potential new members. Those are all things that really are hard as a independent. If you're working by yourself, you own your own business, whatever that might be. The consistent client base that comes in that you have the ability to sell to, that is a security that you can't really put a price on it, because it is something that makes your life a lot easier. And I've talked about that before in other episodes when talking about whether you should work for a facility or you should be an independent. And I've talked about that is such a big benefit for an entry-level instructor to get that skill set of getting your rhythm down of teaching a session, a 1 hour session, being able to communicate with a potential client, and all of that comes into selling them your training packages. All of that is really valuable at a facility because you have more people coming in. It's a numbers game. That number of terms of your closing rate might be really low to start, but you get more repetitions, and all of a sudden you have that rep, you have that system, and all of a sudden it becomes like the back of your hand, and then your closing rate becomes much bigger, and it really is invaluable in terms of what you get from there. But the value as a fit pro, as a fitness instructor that you bring to the gym is something you need to think about. Are you creating content that draws people in? Are you an instructor that people are going to different gyms if you're a group exercise instructor? And I've seen this. I bring this up because I've seen it, that you are a fitness instructor, a group exercise instructor, that people follow you to different gyms depending on what day it is of the week. And all of a sudden people have different memberships because they want to follow you. They want to take your class at whatever gym you're teaching at. I have seen it many times, and that is value there. Value. And this is like pre-social media era in terms of what people will do. If you are somebody like that, yeah, you have a big value. You could probably ask for a raise every single month because the managers will know, oh, wow, I've seen the crowd you bring in, the people that only come just for your class. Value. Are you somebody that's creating content that people attracts them? Are you creating content in terms of social media content that all of a sudden people are seeing and wondering, oh, where do you work? Where do you teach? I want to join that gym. Are you one of those individuals? Because that is all part of what we talked about before with your admin time. What are you doing in that admin time? Are you creating content? Because that is value right there. And if you are thinking, oh, I don't do social media, that's not for me, that I don't want to learn it. Well, it's 2024. Times have changed. How do you push this forward? Right there. Value to the gym, because as a business owner, that is value. That is value if you are creating collaboration posts, reels, content that is not only entertaining, but it is valuable in terms of the area, in terms of exercise science, personal training, group exercise, whatever that might be. Is it fun? And is it making people want to join? Let me throw a piece in there now with, okay, how do we take this one step further? and something to think about. Would you rather get a favorable commission rate if you are one of those individuals? If you are somebody that people will follow you to different gyms, or you're creating content and it's making people want to sign up for a gym, would you rather have a favorable commission rate for each person that joins your gym? Or would you want a admin rate that is around the minimum wage? Because I think that those are things that can be discussion starters. That if you are somebody that is in that boat, and because this conversation I'm talking about here, instructors being paid for admin time, it's not something that's just going to be solved overnight. All of a sudden, every single gym is going to have this type of package. I know that it's very rare that a gym or a facility has this type of payment schedule set in, because there's so many questions that are part of it. And I think that it's something that is going to take more than that. So that's why I bring up that question there, that you can utilize that if you are in that boat. You know that this is a career path for you. You want to create value for a gym, and you want to hopefully approach a manager or an owner. Here is something to think about. I have X amount of followers. We talk about the influencer game. Then I know that people like to rag on that whole title, an influencer. But if you are an influencer and you've taken the time to grow your audience, they trust you, they want to sign up for whatever you're doing. I have seen it from that viewpoint as the business owner and working with somebody that's an influencer. With Time to Train, I have an instructor like that is valuable, that whatever they do, people follow. People that they don't even know them, and all of a sudden they sign up. So yes, value is there. Now, use that information to create a favorable situation for yourself. That is the most of what I have written down for this episode. Like I mentioned before, there's probably some compromise that should happen with this discussion with fit pros, fitness instructors, gym chains. And I think that they need to think about that from the business standpoint. I just saw a post the other day about fitness managers not wanting to adapt with doing the same thing before the pandemic started, and all of a sudden wanting to just go right back into it. Probably should look at this area and create a favorable situation for fitness instructors that creates a career out of it, is favorable for you in terms of gets more people coming in, makes better programming, all those pieces. I think that there is so much in there that can be created, unpacked, and also push the industry forward. So I'm not sure what will happen with this. I'm not sure when and what will happen with it. But like I mentioned before, this is just a communication starter. I'd love to hear what you think about this, whether it's on social media, in the KIPS private Facebook group, Business Builder Plus, Fitness Builder Plus, or even on one of the podcasting platforms. So that has been it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and keep doing what you're doing. Keep coming back to the KIPS Podcast. It's always appreciated. I know there's a lot of options out there, and I'll catch you in the next one.